Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Marvel Plus podcast, the show where we talk the Marvel shows on Disney Plus and how they connect to the MCU. My name is Brett, aka Enigma9011, and you can catch this podcast live over on twitch.tv/Enigma9011 every Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern. You can join the chat and all the fun theory talk over there. If you're a sub, we'd love to have you. But if you can't catch it live, that's A-OK. Drops over on YouTube. Just search Enigma9011 the very next day at 12 noon. You give it a watch, give it a listen over there, and we'd appreciate you for it. So today we're continuing our Moon Knight discussion. We're going to be talking about Moon Knight Episode 3, The Friendly Type, and going over that. So, similar to last week, we're going to get a recap at the beginning, obviously discussing what happened in the last episode, just kind of get you caught up in case you forgot. And the big things that I kind of pulled on from that recap is that Marc obviously has this deal with the Khonshu, the Avatar thing, you know, why he's using his body, when he can leave, etc. And apparently this deal is contingent on Steven not interfering. So, red flag there. All right. And then the closing scene where we see them in Egypt, in Cairo, to kind of get ahead of the whole scarab situation. Their plan is to find the tomb first. So that's going to be our focus today, is how we can find it. So after the recap, we're going to open up with Layla. She's filling in this woman on the situation that is going on with Marc. And she's getting a fake passport, it seems, to travel to Egypt. And it seems like her motivation is to take the things that have been sold on the black market and return them to their rightful place, whether it's, you know, the original location or I assume like a museum, like the rightful owners. And the scarab was originally her father's, or in her father's possession. So, some important things there. We'll get the official opening, and then we're going to pick up with our friend Arthur and his group traveling through the desert, following the scarab, trying to find the tomb, and they have apparently located it. It points down, so they have to start digging now and discover it. One of his, followers is going to report into him, just saying that Spectre is in Cairo, tracking them, and is reporting in. He says not to worry about it, celebrate. We've obviously found what we're looking for, so let's get at it, and let's bring Ahmed back to life. So we're going to cut over to our friend Marc, who's running across some rooftops. He's trying to reach an informant, it seems like. Unfortunately, he is unable to get to that informant and save him in time. As he gets to that roof, that guy's getting stabbed, so that's great. But yeah, this guy was going to give him some information about the dig site, apparently. So it's three, I believe, gentlemen that are ambushing this guy, and now them and Marc are going to get into a fight. Or a dance. We make the joke towards that. So, good fight scene here. One note that I had, and this could be just me pulling something out of my ass. Not surprising. So Marc's fighting off these three guys. Obviously, he's doing a great job of it. We know a little bit of his background, and obviously we've seen in scenes prior, in episode 1 and 2, like what he can do. During the fight, it's early on, but there's at one point Marc is going to punch one of the guys, and you see him actively stop and like open his hand up for a palm. And he's going to use his palm to strike instead of his fist. And I thought this was weird. And once again, I could be just pulling something out. But the way that it was such a pause, like doing the action, pause, change, and then do the action, I was wondering if maybe that was Steven interfering. And something later on, post the fight, is going to kind of work with this theory. And fight's going to continue, no problems from there, keeps going on, beats the shit out of him. And Marc's going to get one of them locked down and has a knife to his throat. In the reflection of the knife, Steven is kind of like pleading with him to stop, not to kill this guy, obviously not murder him because it's Steven's body, and Marc will then black out. in a surprise, is going to wake up in a cab and trying to understand what situation he's in. He's going to talk to the cab driver, and now the cab driver's confused. He's surprised he's speaking Arabic. He's like, what happened? You know, you were such a tourist, a foreigner, and now all of a sudden you're speaking my language and being kind of confrontational. And even while Marc is kind of explaining the situation, as he's speaking, he almost has, like, for a moment, an accent similar to Steven at one point. And even then, that made me scratch my head. I'm like, wait, I had to listen to it again. But it sounded almost like that British accent we've heard from Stephen Grant and his side of the thing. But Marc's able to keep control and figure out what's going on. So as he's having this argument with the taxi driver, he notices the guys on the roof are leaving a building. So he pursues them through the city on foot. Marc's going to catch up to the same guy that he had the knife on his throat and corners him. And he's asking for Harrow. Now this confused me because it's like, okay, who the fuck is Harrow? Apparently Harrow is Arthur. And I don't know if that's just another name for Ahmed or it's the Avatar's name or whatever. But you're going to hear that name a lot. So just a heads up there. So he's asking where Harrow is. And Steven, once again, in the reflection, is going to interfere. And because of this interference, it distracts Marc, and he gets hit on the head. He's going to fall to the ground, and he's going to black out, excuse me, once again, and waking up in the desert, literally stabbing one of the dudes that he's been fighting and chasing after this whole time. So now Marc is going to question Steven, like, what did he do? Because obviously Marc doesn't know what's happened. He's blacked out in between the point of falling, now being in the desert, stabbing this guy. And Steven says it wasn't him, swears to it, and they're both confused what's happening in this situation. There's one survivor left out of the group, and Marc's like, notes he's a kid, he needs the information, but Khonshu says, take him to the ledge, you know, spook him a little bit, he'll give you what you need. So Marc accepts, does that, but in trying to get the information from the kid will cut himself free. I don't know if he cut his scarf or whatever it was, but unfortunately the kid passes away. He falls to his death because of this. And Khonshu, admittedly, is surprised. He's like, oh, didn't think that's how it would go. So now we have some more interior conflict, as Marc is going to continue to question Steven, asking, you know, what are you doing? Why are you getting in the way? What has happened while I blacked out? And Steven says to ask the pigeon, ask Khonshu what's going on. So Marc goes to talk to Khonshu, and he brings up the other gods. He asks if they're going to get involved with this situation, because obviously, you know, Ahmed's a pretty big threat, being locked away, buried after all this time. And Khonshu doesn't think they will, but he's going to do something that will get their attention. So Khonshu causes an eclipse to signal to the other gods, and this is going to have all the other gods and avatars do a gathering together. And apparently the last meeting that Khonshu had been involved with was the one that he got banished. So let's go and see how this meeting goes. So we're going to cut over to this meeting room, which apparently is inside the Great Pyramid of Giza. Steven's stoked about it. And we'll see the other avatars arriving. These are avatars for... Why did I say it so weird? Avatars for, and I apologize if I say any of these names incorrectly, Horus, Isis, Tefnut, Osiris, and Hathor. So those are the gods that are present at this time. Marc is going to meet with one of them, the avatar for Hathor. Her name is Yatzil, I believe. And apparently Khonshu and Hathor were friends in the past. So she's kind of friendly to him, tries to help him in this situation that he hasn't been in yet, this whole meeting thing. So the whole reason for this meeting is for Khonshu to plead his case against Arthur, against Ahmed, the whole situation that is happening there. And now we get our first tie-in potentially to another part of the MCU. So the gods aren't happy with Khonshu, obviously because of his allegations, but also because of this big scene he has caused in order to get this meeting. And apparently humanity had abandoned the gods, and now the avatars are just meant to be there to observe and not to meddle. Now this observe and not to meddle thing, that was where the light bulb kind of clicked in my head. I was like, this sounds very eerily similar to the Eternals. That was their whole gimmick in that movie. Why didn't you interfere with Thanos? Why didn't you do this? It was just they were there, as we'll find out later in that movie, they're there to raise up the life source, and then eventually the planet gets destroyed and that life source gets absorbed. So this, I don't know if these Egyptian gods are the same premise as the Eternals, because we know the Eternals that have gone on Earth. I don't know their character names by name, but like we know there was a group of 6 or 7 of them that are already here. So then to also have these guys here, little confusing. I don't know if more were sent either later on or at the same time, and for some reason these gods just don't have a connection with the Eternals, if it's the same concept. But in the phrasing, it sounds exactly like the Eternals. They're just there. They're there to do their role, and that's it. So, just a little red flag of like, potential. So, anyways, Khonshu's pleading his case here, saying, all the stuff that's going wrong. And Arthur's going to appear. Oh, apparently he is Ahmed's avatar. And he is now pleading against this accusation, saying, no, I'm just literally in the area. I didn't know it was against the law to walk around the desert. And he mentions how he's been looking for the tomb even when he was Khonshu's avatar prior. And then Arthur's going to kind of throw some stones and be like, the current avatar, Marc and Steven, he's not healthy. This person's not right. He's unwell. And Khonshu's going to go to punch Harrow or Arthur, and he's stopped by another avatar. So now they somehow are able to just talk to Marc alone without Khonshu speaking through him, and they ask if he's unwell. Marc does admit and say that he's unwell and asks for help. He still admits that Arthur is causing harm, but opens up to these other gods and avatars. The meeting is dismissed, no offense has been committed, and, obviously Marc's not too happy about that. But they all leave, except for Yatzil, who says there may be another way to kind of shed light on the situation and, fix this. And she mentions that Ahmed was buried in secret, even from the gods. There's only one person who knew this person called Senfu, and the idea was, like, if the gods happen to change their mind, they could contact Senfu and get this person free, the other god free. But he was alive ages and ages ago, and his sarcophagus was stolen and sold on the black market. Great. So now we're going to cut back quickly outside of the meeting area. Marc's back in town, and he's kind of questioning, trying to find out, all right, where is the sarcophagus? And Layla's going to show up, and she's going to lend her assistance in finding the sarcophagus. So they're going to travel by boat over to wherever Layla is leading them, and they're going to have a fun chat, unfortunately with each other. Obviously they have, the past relationship. They're not too happy with each other, and they're trying to refocus eventually and figure out what the plan is of attack to get the artifact back. And Marc will eventually apologize for the whole situation. But the two are going to arrive, I don't know if it was on an island, but at their location. And it's a location where someone called Mogart kind of collects stuff and keeps and preserves it, keeps it safe. And I guess he has a sarcophagus. So they leave the boat, and as they're leaving, they notice there's a stray boat arriving. They don't know what it is, but they just notice it, kind of leave it as is. So we get this big reunion with Mogart, and he'll eventually show them the sarcophagus. And they're observing it. And Stephen is going to talk through a reflection to Marc, just kind of in fascination of the piece, and kind of tell them, or him, that it's like a puzzle that they need to figure out in order to get the information. So while this is going on, Layla's going to ask Marc to bring Stephen out, because obviously he has the expertise in this field, to help out before Marc messes anything up. And Marc says, no, not a chance. So Stephen's still trying to, give any information he can, try and assist. And, eventually, Stephen's going to convince Marc to give up the body for now. And the concept, or rather, I'm sorry, I'm skipping ahead. Stephen gives him the information. Marc's able to do the puzzle through Stephen's information. And it's a puzzle that's making a star chart, or like a constellation of where Abed is buried. Jesus, falling apart. So as we're about to finish it, one of the guards is going to stop Marc, takes out his gun. Marc freaks out, but the guards have everybody covered. Layla's in danger, he's in danger. And Layla's going to try and talk down Mogart, explain the situation. Now the third party arrives, the extra boat that we saw, and it's Arthur with the scarab. He says, why settle for the clue when you can have the treasure? Tries to offer the scarab to him, and Layla's going to attempt to warn him about the intention, but it does not work out that way. So eventually this is going to run to a whole altercation between Marc and the rest of the guards. Arthur's going to cause a fire on the sarcophagus, destroying most of it and seemingly the clue. And Marc is going to change into Moon Knight and whoop some ass. So they fight. We see a cool kind of power that Moon Knight does have, as he's protecting Layla from some bullets. The cape that he is wearing to use as the shield will absorb the bullets and then later on return them to the gunmen that have fired at Moon Knight. Moon Knight's going to fight off the remaining guards in the arena that this guy kind of has casually just out in front of his, or in his backyard. And Beck, the head guardsman, and Layla are going to get into a fight. So that's all going to go down. While this is going on, Stephen is still kind of pleading with Marc, like, don't do this, be careful, it's my body. And while this is happening, Stephen somehow is able to flip it so he is in control. So we'll see the suit modify. He becomes Mr. Knight instead of Moon Knight. And he's trying to talk down the guards, be like, whoa, okay, everybody's high energy here. Let's relax, let's calm down. And as he's doing this little talk, he's going to get stabbed in the back with a spear. And Stephen immediately is like, no. Okay, Marc, take it back. Marc will take back control and become Moon Knight once again. We'll see Layla finish off her fight with the necklace that she was wearing, able to defeat Beck. And Marc is getting just pummeled by different spears, getting attacked. But seeing that Layla is becoming more in danger with Mogart, he's going to bust out get out from the rest of the guards, and able to deal with Mogart with a crescent after he protects Layla and saves her. Alright, so the two are leaving now, that whole stressful situation. And during Arthur's kind of talking to Mogart previously, he had brought up a situation with Layla about her father's murder. We don't know too many details about this right now, but essentially that information was exposed by Arthur. Marc is going to be questioned about it, and it seems like Marc is going to play it off and just mentions like he's trying to get in your head, just, you know, disrupt what we're trying to do. Leave it. Layla complains about more and more secrets every time that they kind of interact, and once she seems like she knows it all, something new happens, and Marc just simply replies, yeah, you don't know me. So something we're going to have to watch out for in episode 4, 5, 6 to see how this affects these two, and if we learn more about the father's murder, if this was actually tied with Marc, or if once again this is just a disruption like Marc said. Alright, so now we're going to see the two driving away in their car. Unfortunately, they're being followed by some disciples, as we'll know as the audience, but not them. And they're trying to reconstruct the star map after they've gotten out in the desert. It's all in scraps, and they're really having a tough time with it. And Marc's clearly frustrated. Layla's going to mention we need Stephen's help. Khonshu, observing this whole situation, says, you know he's not going to return the body after you're done with, like, once you hand it back to him. Marc, in a frustration, is going to take all the pieces that they had kind of laid out, on the back of their truck, and the resources, and he's going to throw them on the ground, and he will allow Stephen to take control. Stephen immediately is going to get to work. He constructs the star map and no problem, and it reveals the constellation. Layla's all happy. This is great. We have the map. We can find where this is. And while it is great, Senfu, who created this map, was made 2,000 years ago, and stars drift a bit. Says it won't be a lot, but unfortunately, you know, just, I don't know if it's how revolving works and tilting off the axis and moving farther every time. I don't know astrology. It's shifted, so it's not just like, hey, we're here. So they got to figure that out. And Khonshu decides to help them out. He says he remembers that night, but he's going to need some help. So the two follow him for a little bit, and he reveals that he's going to turn back the night sky, but unfortunately it's going to come at a cost. By doing this, Khonshu is going to get imprisoned by the other gods, because it's just such this big motion that obviously the civilians will notice and see, and it exposes them potentially, or has that potential to do that. So with Stephen's help, the two are able to revolve the stars back to that point. With this, Layla is able to find the coordinates, accurate coordinates, so they know where to go. While the spinning is happening, we can see the other avatars and the other gods kind of chanting an incantation along with each other, and this is imprisoning Khonshu. After Layla finds the coordinates, the Khonshu, in a lot of pain, will disappear and be put into this totem, as we'll see later. Stephen is also going to pass out after assisting, and we will see Harrow walking to join the other avatars, and he notices the totem, sees the imprisonment. In our last kind of scene, we're going to see Arthur speaking to the totem. He asked one of the other gods if he could hear him. And in talking to him, he admits that he liked dishing out the pain that he had while he was Khonshu's avatar. And what he faced as Khonshu's avatar forged him and kind of pushed him in this direction and he will owe his victory to him. And that will be the end of this episode. Whew, so we got a lot going on. So our big question is, do Marc and Steven still have the ability to spawn the armor now, with Khonshu being imprisoned? I'm leaning towards no, and with that, it's like, okay, how are they going to get Khonshu free now? Which Khonshu kind of warns Steven, tell Marc this, have him get me free. So it's going to be interesting to see how they're going to be able to get this ability back if they don't have it. I assume, once again, it's a safe assumption that they don't have this ability just willy-nilly whenever they want. Because if they did, there's like no real motivation to go save Khonshu, right? That was the whole gimmick. Like, he's got the powers, I'm attached to him. Kind of, you know, seems simple. But I don't know how they're going to tackle that. Like, I guess Marc does have these abilities, as we saw with his rooftop fights. He just doesn't have the healing ability. So as long as he doesn't get hurt, it will be okay. I guess we'll have to see. So that is our big cliffhanger point of like, uh-oh, Hero's not in a great spot. So we'll have to see how that plays out. But yeah, I thought it was a solid episode overall. Like I said, now that we have these introductions of Steven, Marc, and the Khonshu, and we kind of know their motivations, we can kind of just keep going forward. It's not this whole mystery element. We do have the mystery element of the whole Marc and Steven stuff at the very beginning with the blackouts. Was that the Khonshu that had controlled these individuals to get them to the taxi, to get them to that point in the desert when stabbing that guy? Or are we going to add a whole nother layer to this cake where there's another personality? I don't think there is, but that's interesting. I wonder if it's almost like an autopilot, kind of, where Marc passed out because Steven was interfering. Is it just like the mind isn't there, but the body continues? Like the two psyches are battling each other so much that the consciousness isn't there, but the actions are still being able to be done. It's a lot of questions. So we have the taxi. Was Steven able to overthrow the body and get them to safety in the taxi? And then Marc later on was able to keep control, and that's how we got to the desert with the stabbing. A lot of questions there. We'll have to see. So Mrs. G says, so the Moon Knight guy is Marc. Yes, so when technically they're both Moon Knight. It's just an easy way to keep the personas in check and in line. I think the outfit with the hood and the cape is technically Moon Knight. That's his traditional look. And then you have Mr. Knight, which is like the dress suit. That's, I think they're calling it Mr. Knight. But that's just a way that we can distinguish who is in control. So Marc, when he has the suit, is hooded. And when Steven has the the suit, he has the button-up suit. Because that's his interpretation of the suit. When everybody said, summon the suit, summon the suit, summon the suit last episode, that is, I assume, what he thought. Because that's a traditional looking suit. Maybe not like he's just wearing the vest, but that's my understanding of it. Exactly, the English gentleman. Yes, 100%. 100%. So yeah, we'll have to see how things go from here. So yeah, I'm real curious about this Eternals tie-in, if it's anything, if it's not. Just that verbiage itself, it seems too strong not to be a tie-in. But once again, from the movie, we had seen the Eternals that had come to Earth. I just don't know if there's additional ones that also were there or arrived later, whatever it is. So that's just really cool to be like, wait a minute, tie-in? Because we haven't had many so far. We've had the Daredevil, potentially, Eskrima Sticks, and then That actually might have been the only two. So it's just fun to kind of be like, oh, okay, here's a connection. So we'll see. Maybe time will tell. But yeah, we're in an interesting spot heading into these final 3 episodes. We'll have to see where things go from here, obviously. What are Mark and Steven and Layla going to do without the Khonshu, without the suit? And how are they going to get him out of prison, out of jail? God jail. Also, how deep is the tomb? How far are we digging for this thing? I guess we got some episodes, so it must be down pretty far, which is good. That'll buy us time. And yeah, well, it's interesting to see this relationship. Obviously, Mark said he was unwell to the other gods. Is Mark not a separate individual that is locked into Steven's body? Is it actually like a bipolar or split personality type thing, where technically, obviously, both play a part in this one individual? We'll have to see. If so, I'm curious as to when Steven first started, because it seems almost out of necessity. Steven's not a scapegoat, but a way to hide. So if it's not Mark and Khonshu latching on to him, interesting. We'll have to see. That's a lot of a lot of questions there. But yeah, this has been another episode of the Marvel Plus podcast. My name is Brett, aka Enigma911, and you can catch this podcast live every Sunday over on twitch.tv/Enigma911 at 7 p.m. every Sunday. You can join the chat like Mrs. G did today if you want to talk some fun theories and all that fun stuff. If you're a subscriber over there, we'd love to have you. If you can't catch it live, that's A-OK. You can go over to YouTube the very next day. Just search for Enigma911, and it drops at 12 noon Eastern. You give it a watch, give it a listen over there, and we'd appreciate you for it. So we're halfway through Moon Knight. I hope you guys are enjoying it so far. I feel like the ball is definitely rolling, and Moon Knight looks dope as hell. The fights are looking great. So I'm excited to see how this series continues and see where potentially, after this story is wrapped up, how maybe Moon Knight will continue going forward. What will his presence be in terms of the rest of the MCU, who he'll connect with, or maybe what his next step is. But we'll have to see. Thank you guys so much for your time today. I hope you guys have a good one, and we'll see you on the next time. Bye.